لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير الأنبياء والمرسلين على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا يا رب العالمين. وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, it's a great pleasure to be back here again at Dini Masjid, this blessed Masjid, mashallah, in this blessed community, to speak about a blessed topic, Alhamdulillah. And the topic of reviving the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of course, is a very difficult topic. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when we think about, of course, this month of Rabi al-Awwal, this is the month in which Muslims around the world are coming together in order to do what? In order to revive this love, in order to make mention of the name of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And inshallah, today I'm going to share with you just some points and some reflections. There's so much to talk about in this topic of reviving the love of the Prophet ﷺ. But I want us to reflect on his maqam first and foremost, the status of the Prophet ﷺ. And then inshallah we will talk about ways in which we can try to increase our love for him. And to be honest with you, the greatest way of increasing your love for the Prophet ﷺ is to learn more about him. That's just to learn more about him, who he sallallahu alayhi wasallam was as a person. Because the more you know about the Prophet ﷺ, yes, the more you will come to love him. So we will share some aspects of his life, inshallah, and some practical steps that we should try to implement in our life in order to follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ. But first and foremost, we should understand that from the greatest blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the sending of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He conferred a great blessing, yes, upon nations, that He sent the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He carries on, and He mentions some of the roles of this Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. فَلَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَإِنْ كَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. That the role of this messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam came with a mission, he came with a role. What was that role? To recite the verses of the Quran to the people. وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and to purify them from the diseases that plague all of us. It's the disease of kibr, of riyā, of these diseases of envy that many of us have, unfortunately, in our hearts. He came to rid us of this and to purify the people from shirk, and then to teach the book and teach the wisdom. And as many of the mufassirin, they said the sunnah. So the point being what? Is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that this is a blessing, that He sent the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And the sending of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is a mercy in itself. Yes? And we know that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, of course, is a mercy to all of creation. When you read, the Shifa of Qadi Iyad, he talks about how the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is not only a mercy to mankind, but how he's a mercy to jinn. How he sallallahu alayhi wasallam is a mercy to all of creation, alayhi salatu wasalam. But unfortunately, the truth is, and let's be quite frank and honest, that when it comes to our relationship with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, for many of us it's very weak. Unfortunately, for many of us, that we're living in a time where we don't know much about the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They say in order to love someone, you have to learn, you have to know about that person. How can you claim to love somebody you don't know nothing about? That's just a fake type of love. This is not a real love. Yes, you say I love a person, you don't know anything about that person. How true is that love? And then unfortunately we have many youth today here, mashallah, we did a little experiment in our madrasa with some of the children. And we asked some of the children about some footballers. So we asked them about Ronaldo. Yes, we asked them about Messi. We asked them about Muhammad Salah. And they will tell you, subhanallah, they will tell you the seerah of these people. They will tell you how many goals they scored last season, and mashallah, who they played for first, where they grew up. They will tell you everything about these people. Why? Because they're invested in them. Yes, they have that true love for them. And then we said, okay, the teachers, let's ask them about the Prophet ﷺ. Who was his father? What was the name of his father? What was the name of his mother? Some of you, don't get me wrong, alhamdulillah, you ask them again, basic questions. And unfortunately, many of them didn't know. Basic things. How old was the Prophet ﷺ when he married Khadija? What was named two of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ? How old was he when Revelation came? No real understanding. And what were some of the main things the Prophet ﷺ taught this ummah? Very disconnected. So this is unfortunate. This is not only the youth. You speak to many adults as well. We don't know much about the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And this is the first problem. That if we want to revive the love of the Prophet ﷺ, we have to learn about him ﷺ. And as I said, I want to just spend a few minutes first and foremost really thinking about the maqam of the Prophet ﷺ and spending some time for us to really reflect on the status of the Prophet ﷺ. And there's no place better to look than the Quran. And we know time and time again in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He praises the Prophet ﷺ. وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ. We have raised, elevated your mention. And again, when you look in Ash-Shifa al-Qadiyat, he mentions in here that the Hadith Qudsi, that this is related to the Hadith Qudsi, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that, when I am mentioned, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, and that the Prophet ﷺ is mentioned with him. And if this is not a fadl, we don't know what a fadl is, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, that the Prophet ﷺ is also mentioned. That's when we say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadan Rasulullah. This is the fadl and virtue of the Prophet ﷺ. In Qatada, he said that Allah exalted the Prophet ﷺ in this world and the next. He said, there's no speaker, no witness, or anyone doing the prayer who fails to say, who fails to testify to the shahada of the Prophet ﷺ. He is the praised one, and that's what his name means. Muhammad means what? Muhammad means the one who is praised, ﷺ. And there's not a moment goes by except that the Prophet ﷺ is praised. Not a moment goes by. Around the globe, he's being praised. And that's why, when you look at, even when you reflect on the names of the Prophet ﷺ, Muhammad, in the hadith he said, and I am Ahmad. So the Prophet ﷺ, his name is Muhammad, the praised one. The one who is praised by everyone. And his name is Ahmad, the one who praises. He is the one who teaches how to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no one who ever lived who praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the Prophet ﷺ praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, many other names that are given. In another ayah, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't just attach His name sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to His own name, but He also attaches obedience to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam to His obedience. مَن يُطِعِ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهَ. That the one who obeys the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he has obeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By obeying the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, you are obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even in the, in Surah Al-Fatiha we read, اِهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ, guide us to the straight path. We know in other places in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains what this straight path is. Yes, the path of the righteous, the path of those who are truthful, the shuhada, etc. But Hassan al-Basri, he said about this ayah, he said, guide us to the straight path, i.e. the path of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. This is what's meant here, by اِهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ. So we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is honored and praised the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And really we can talk all day about this, the praise of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, his maqam, etc. But the question, the essence of the matter is, how much do we honor the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? Where is our honor, our love for the Prophet ﷺ? And this is something that really we should reflect on. Really we should spend some time to think about. How dear is the Prophet ﷺ to me? Really, I mean, yes, we can say the Prophet ﷺ is most beloved to me. And this is all statement, speech, kalam on the tongue. But really if we try to think, how dear is the Prophet ﷺ to me? How honored is he to me? We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honors him. But how much do I honor the Prophet ﷺ? Because there's no doubt that he should be the most beloved to us. Yes, a person, we know his faith is not complete until the Prophet ﷺ is more beloved to him than all of creation. Yes? So again, reflecting, how true is this in my life? How have I taken him sallallahu alayhi wasallam as an example? Because the reality of the matter is what? That the Prophet ﷺ is the one who spent day and night for this ummah. The Prophet ﷺ is the one who would spend his nights making dua for you and I. Making dua for you and I, my dear brothers and sisters. This is the Prophet ﷺ. This is the concern he had for you and I. What concern do we have for the Prophet ﷺ? You know, on the Day of Judgment, we know يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ. Yes, that man will flee from his brother, he will flee from his spouse, he will flee from everyone. And you think about all those people who are most beloved to you in this world. Yes, your children, your parents. Yes, some of our youngsters think, our friends. Yes, these are the most beloved people to us. On the Day of Judgment, each of these individuals will be worried about their own self. They will have no time for you and I. No time for your mother will have no time for you and I on the Day of Judgment. But what does, in the hadith in Bukhari, what do we know about what will happen on the Day of Judgment when the people will be gathered together looking for somebody to intercede? Yes, because again, nobody else is giving you time. So they're going to gather, and who are they going to go to? They're going to Adam alayhi salam. They're going to go to the Prophet Adam, and they're going to ask Adam alayhi salam to intercede. And he will say what? I'm not fit for this. I can't do this. And this is why some of the ulama, they said that even the Anbiya on that day will be worried about themselves. And they say, I'm not fit for this. And he will say, what? Go to Ibrahim alayhi salam. He is the Khalil of Allah. He is the close friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The people will go to Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam will say what? I'm not fit for this. These major prophets. Yes, they're going to say, we're not fit for this. Go to who? Let's go to Musa alayhi salam. They will go to Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam will say the exact same thing. I'm not fit for this. He will say, go to Isa. Isa, there were people who go to Isa alayhi salam. Isa alayhi salam, again, from the greatest of Anbiya, will say, I'm not fit for this. Then what will the people, where will they go? They will go to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he will say, what? This is for me. And this is my job. This is my role. And he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam will come and intercede. And in the hadith, obviously, the tafsir is given that he will then go and he will praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with such praise that has not been uttered before. And he will fall down in prostration. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, that ask, intercede, and it will be granted. And what would the reply be? This goes on 3-4 times. And he will say, my ummah, my ummah. And he will intercede. And the words mention ummati. And this is where we get this phrase, ummati, from. Yes, and we had in Nasheeds before, or earlier, that this is what it's all about. That he was he's so concerned for you and I, for his ummah. And towards the end of the hadith in Bukhari, it mentions that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will keep asking, can I take this person, can we take those out of the hellfire, who have a mustard seed of iman in them. And they will be granted, they'll be granted. Towards the end of the hadith, it mentions that those who have the lightest mustard seed of iman in their heart, the intercession will be granted for these people as well. You think, subhanAllah, this is the Prophet ﷺ. And again, thinking about what he's going to do for this ummah, what he's done for this ummah, the sacrifices he made. Where have we put the Prophet ﷺ in our life? These are questions we need to really ask ourselves, my dear brothers and sisters. Today is very easy. You want to learn about the Prophet ﷺ, you go on the internet, you go on books, everything's available. Encyclopedias are written, it's all available. We don't have to sacrifice like in the past. When they would sacrifice, one would travel from Damascus. Jabir ibn Abdullah traveled from Damascus, from Medina to Damascus. Why? To go and listen to one hadith. SubhanAllah. Umar and his neighbor, they would take turns. They used to live outside the city of Medina, they would take turns to go to Medina to go and learn from the Prophet ﷺ. And he sacrificed to spend time with the Prophet ﷺ, to learn the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Today it's so easy for us, but yet we're so neglectful. We don't want to make that effort. We don't want to read a book. We don't want to listen to lectures. It's all available, my dear brothers and sisters. We have to be people who truly make some effort. Another question I want us to reflect on is, what are our obligations towards the Prophet ﷺ? So as we said, first and foremost, I need to love him. I need to love the Prophet ﷺ. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من والده وولده والناس أجمعين. That none of you will attain true iman, complete belief, until I am more beloved to him than his father, his children, and all of the people. And again, if we reflect and ask ourselves, is the Prophet ﷺ dearer to me than my own family? Wallahi, it's an important question. Is the Prophet ﷺ dearer to me than my own family? You and I will know the answer. And if the answer is in the negative, then we have a problem. We have to try to rectify this problem. But to rectify a problem, you have to recognize that the problem exists. Many of us are just living blindly, and you're just living life without any real concern, any real thinking, any real contemplation. And that's why these gatherings are good, to remind ourselves, so we can take some time to think, okay, where are my priorities? Why is the Prophet ﷺ not any more beloved to me than everyone that exists? What's the reasons for this? What can I do to remedy this situation? So the Prophet ﷺ, and this is why in one hadith he said that whoever, when he said the halal of Imaam, whoever has the following three qualities will have the sweetness of faith. And one of them is what? That Allah and His Apostle, the Prophet ﷺ, are dearer to him than anything else. And if you want to taste the sweetness of Iman, then Allah and His Rasul need to be dearer to you than anything else. And I remember one of our teachers, he was giving us a lecture about the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says, this is a claim we all make. Yet very few of us can substantiate that we love Allah. He says, if you love Allah, if you have love for any person, you're constantly thinking about that person. Yes, when you're in love, you're always thinking about the one you love. Yes, and even if it's not, let's say, your spouse or even your children, you're always worried and thinking about your children because you have love for them. He says, if you truly love Allah, you truly love the Prophet ﷺ, you constantly be thinking about them. He says another point when it comes to the one when it comes to love, is that when you love a person, yes, you constantly make mention of them. You constantly talk about them. Yes, even when it comes to our children, we're always talking about their achievements, what they've done. Why? Because we have that love for them. Because when it comes to how many of us today, we sit down and we talk about Allah, we talk about His Rasul, alayhi salatu wasalam. And he mentioned 5 or 6 beautiful points, which really, he said, if you reflect on them, will tell you how true your love is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we can apply the same to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Is how often do we make mention of him? How often do we think about him? And how often do we thank him? SubhanAllah, he said that, one of the signs of true love for Allah is that you are in constant gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, because love, when you have love for a person, you're always appreciating what that person does for you. Yes, you're always going to appreciate when somebody you love does something, you're always going to appreciate that. You're going to thank that person. You're going to, constantly, praise that person for the love that they've shown you. Yes, or for what they've done for you. When it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no one who has done greater or given us as much as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do we constantly make mention of Allah and His fadl upon us? And again, when it comes to the Prophet ﷺ as well. Point being is what? Is that true love, it needs to be manifested. Yes, and today you find that, people get very riled up when it comes to somebody who, criticizes the Prophet ﷺ, and of course it should hurt every single one of us. Yes, when somebody criticizes and speaks badly about the Prophet ﷺ, it should hurt our hearts. And again, for many Muslims, there's no real effect. Okay, you just carry on with life. And then you get those who go crazy. Yes, but again, when it comes to actually, is true love there? True love is not manifested in just losing your mind when something happens, but true love is manifested in your obedience to Him and following His way, which leads us on to the next point. And when you look at, of course, the companions, they are the ultimate example of love for the Prophet ﷺ. Yes, we know the famous story when Umar He went to the Prophet ﷺ, he said that you're more beloved to me than anyone else. Just accept myself. Okay, let's not go too far. Yes, you're beloved to me, but everybody loves their own self. What did the Prophet ﷺ reply? He said, no, by the one in whose hand is my soul. That you will not attain that trueness, that complete level until I am more beloved to you than your own self. Umar went away, thought about it, he said, Ya Rasulullah, you're more beloved to me than my own self. The Prophet ﷺ said, now, Ya Umar, now you really got it. And so actually now the Prophet ﷺ becomes dearer to us than our own selves. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this is why you find when, the famous incident in when Suhail ibn Amr, he was at the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, and he was like the negotiator on behalf of the Quraysh. And he comes back to the Quraysh and he says, I have never seen a people, and he was somebody who traveled. He was, a chief negotiator, he had seen different empires, met different people. When he came back to the Quraysh, he said, I've never seen a people who honor and love their leader more than the Muslims love the Prophet and honor the Prophet ﷺ. This was the regard of the Prophet that the companions had. There's obviously the famous example as well of Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu. When he was dying, he started to weep radiallahu anhu. And his son said to him that, didn't the Prophet ﷺ praise you, you were a companion, the Prophet ﷺ loved you, etc. And he gave you the glad tidings. And Amr, he responds, he says that, there was a point in my life when the most despised man to me was the Prophet ﷺ. He was the most despised man to me. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the love of Islam in my heart. And what happened then? He says the Prophet ﷺ became the most beloved man to me. Yes, why? Because he spent time with the Prophet ﷺ. He interacted with the Prophet ﷺ. He knew and loved and became so close to the Prophet ﷺ. And this is why when we talk about reviving love, the first step is to learn about who this individual was, alayhi salatu wasalam. Another obligation upon the believers when it comes to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is to obey and follow. Yes? There's no good in claiming to love the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and your actions are in complete contradiction to that claim. Yes, you say, I love the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam tells you and commands you to do actions and you don't do those actions. What kind of love is that? This is not true love. And so we're told time and time again in the Quran, obey Allah and His Messenger. Yes, you obey Allah and His Messenger. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So obedience, and many verses, I'm not going to go into all of them, but many verses which touch on this. Of course, another right of the Prophet ﷺ upon the believers is that we send peace and blessings upon him. And this is why some of the ulama would say that the most blessed gatherings are the gatherings of hadith. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ dhikr is constantly done. Constantly sending salawat and salam upon the Prophet ﷺ. So we should constantly and always be in a state of salawat. And we know many ahadith in which the Prophet ﷺ encouraged this. And we know from the Quran itself, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَةُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ. Allah and His angels do salah upon the Prophet ﷺ, i.e. send blessings and rahmah upon the Prophet ﷺ. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا صَلُّوا عَلَيْهِ وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. And all you who believe, do the same. So we should constantly be in a state of sending salawat and salam upon the Prophet ﷺ. And of course, we know from other ahadith when the Prophet ﷺ said that the closest of you to me on the Day of Judgment is the one who sends the most salawat upon me. And of course on Thursday nights it's recommended to increase in our salawat upon the Prophet ﷺ. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Muhammad. Very short, it doesn't have to be long. These are short salawat that we should constantly engage in. So, I don't want to again take too long. I know Maulana Sahib is here, and I'm also here to listen to Maulana Sahib, to be honest. MashaAllah, Maulana Iqbal is our teacher, our ustad, our Maulana. So, inshallah, we're going to, inshallah, listen to Maulana Sahib. But, again, if I wanted to summarize a few points when it comes to reviving the love of the Prophet ﷺ, And again, I think this is a practice that many Muslims try to do in the month of Rabi'ul Awwal. But there are a few things that we should do. We should, again, as I said, and I've kept on saying it throughout this short talk, is to learn more about the Prophet ﷺ. So read a book on Seerah. Have a book, find a book on Seerah. There are many books now in English that you can read on the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. And this is, when we read the Seerah, we're reading about his life. Okay, so from the birth, the early years in Mecca, and you learn about how the hardships that he went through as an orphan, and that's the struggles as a shepherd. You go through all of this when you read the Seerah. And then his marriage, and then when prophethood came, and then the time in Medina. So learn about what he went through, his actual life. And then we also have to study and read about the character of the Prophet ﷺ. Yes, and this comes through in books like Kitab al-Shama'il. Yes, of Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah. Or Ash-Shifa al-Qadi Iyad. Yeah, just some books that, again, the more we spend time reading and researching and learning about not only his seerah, but his character, his khuluq, his way of life, that's when true love will come in. Because we will realize who the Prophet ﷺ truly was. When you look at the Prophet ﷺ, then his khuluq, his character, you cannot but admire the Prophet ﷺ. When you look at, and of course we know, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself praises the Prophet ﷺ's character. But that character was manifested in so many different ways. When the Prophet ﷺ, how was he with his wives? How was he as a family man? Yeah, and when you look at the narrations, and some of the narrations on the Prophet ﷺ as a family man, as a husband, you're left in shock, you're left in awe. When Aisha, she says that the Prophet ﷺ would come home and he would help out in the household chores. Prophet ﷺ, yes, the leader of the believers. When he was out of the house, it's not like you and I, 9 to 5, and you come home and then you start complaining about bits and bobs. The Prophet ﷺ is dealing with the affairs of the Ummah, dealing with so much. Yet when he would come home, she says that he would help out and also he was loving and kind towards his wife. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And he manifested this in many ways. When we know in the verse that's always read at nikah, I just came from a nikah. The verse that we read is what? That from the signs of Allah in Surah Al-Rum is that He created for you from amongst yourselves spouses. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. And He placed between you mawadda and rahmah. Yes, these are two key characteristics of marriage. Love and mercy. And you look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ as a husband and you see these two key characteristics manifested in his marriage. Yes, and Aisha, many narrations of Aisha, when she talks about the loving nature of the Prophet ﷺ, the mercy of the Prophet ﷺ. And his character was something which everybody attested to. The very interesting narration when some of the companions of the Tabi'een, they went to Aisha and they asked about the character of the Prophet ﷺ. And it's a very interesting question. Because they knew what the character of the Prophet ﷺ was like. Yes? Some of them travelled with the Prophet ﷺ. Some of them met the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ spent much time outside of the house. So they knew what his character was like. So why are they asking Aisha? Because they wanted to know what was his character like at home. What was he like inside the house when nobody else is there? And in front of the people, oh mashallah, everybody's great, very nice person, and you go home and you find out it's the complete opposite. Yes, got a face on, doesn't want to talk to anybody, children are scared, nobody wants to. And this is what's in many Muslims' homes these days. But the Prophet ﷺ at home, outside the home, كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ. That his character, he was a living embodiment of the Quran. Inside the home, outside the home. And the Prophet ﷺ, that's what, the point being what? Is that when we learn about the Prophet ﷺ as a husband, when we learn about the Prophet ﷺ, how he was with children, and the rahmah he had for children. Today, mashallah, it's nice to see so many children in the masjid. But some of our masajid, you go, they don't like it when children come. There was a narration when the Prophet ﷺ one day was given the khutbah. He's on the minbar. And one of the grandsons walks in, I can't remember whether it was Hassan or Hussein. He walks in. And as a young boy, he's young, he's walking in, he's falling here and there, causing a bit of a commotion in the masjid. The Prophet ﷺ on the minbar comes down from the minbar, goes, yes, grabs his grandson and brings him and places him next to the minbar. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Today if a young child comes in, what do we do? We say, get out. You make a noise in the masjid hall. Do you know how to behave? Yeah, 4 years old, right? Do you know how to behave? He's not 40. Yeah, but no rahmah, no mercy when it comes to our children. And he's showing them that love and mercy. And we know the Umama, the granddaughter of the Prophet ﷺ, would climb on his back, would be all over the place when the Prophet ﷺ is praying. Again, the Prophet ﷺ didn't say, and this is what we're doing. And when the child comes around, we start and he's shouting at the child, behave yourself. The Prophet ﷺ wasn't like this. He had mercy towards children, very forgiving. And the Prophet ﷺ, again, when you read about his character, and he would smile at the people. The Prophet ﷺ, something simple. He would smile, he would make people feel welcome. He would show them that love, that care, that attention. Again, in the Shama'il, when you read, that when he would speak to somebody, he would give all his attention to that person. All his attention. So that person feels valued. This is why some of the companions, they would all think that they were the most beloved to the Prophet ﷺ. In the famous narration, one of the companions comes and says, who's the most beloved to you, Ya Rasulullah? He says, Aisha. Then who? Summa Abuha, and then her father. And then who? Yeah, this person's getting worried. And he's thinking it's him. Yeah, mentioning different people. Okay, khalas, to leave it there. You know? But this was the way of the Prophet ﷺ. And he's smiling, giving time to people. Kana yukhalitu nas. He would mix with the people. He would give time to the people. Many things that we can learn from the khuluq and the character of the Prophet ﷺ. And I think, I'll end here. And inshallah, I'll ask Maulana to please come and take over and really give us something to think about, inshallah. As they say, you starters and then the main course is here, alhamdulillah. So I'll give over to the main course, inshallah.
Mostly people that take starters.